She scanned the same barcodes every morning for 12 years, serving the same customers who saw her as just another small-town grocery clerk. They had no idea that in exactly 18 minutes, a man she thought was dead would walk through those doors. Customers knew her simply as the nice lady at Register 3. But in FBI archives, she was recorded as Ghost, the most successful undercover agent in the agency's history. Before we continue this incredible story, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need to hear them. Rebecca Miller had been working at Riverside Supermarket for 12 years. Every morning she unlocked the same door, put on her apron, and took her position at the same cash register. She smiled at customers, and they smiled back. She appeared to be just another ordinary grocery store employee in a small Pennsylvania town. But none of them noticed how Rebecca's eyes systematically scanned every customer who entered the store. None of them realized she was automatically analyzing their bags, pockets, and walking patterns. And certainly, none of them suspected that this calm woman had once captured the world's most dangerous criminals. 12 years ago, Agent Rebecca Thompson was the FBI's most successful undercover operations specialist. Known by the codename Ghost, Rebecca was a legendary agent who was never detected by any target, never caught on any mission. Until her final assignment, the Prague operation, ended in disaster. The Alexander Petrov case had destroyed Rebecca's FBI career. They had spent 3 years preparing to capture Petrov, the leader of an international arms smuggling network. But in the final moments of the operation, everything went wrong. Petrov escaped, 4 agents lost their lives, and Rebecca was officially listed as killed in action. In reality, Rebecca was alive, but her identity had been burned. The FBI gave her a new identity and helped her establish a new life in a small town. Rebecca Thompson was now history. In her place, Rebecca Miller, grocery store clerk, was born. That Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. At exactly 2:30 p.m., Rebecca was having a normal day at the cash register. Elderly Mrs. Patterson was buying canned corn. Young mother Lisa Rodriguez was doing her weekly shopping with her child. Everything was normal until that man walked in. When the tall, broad-shouldered man in an expensive suit entered the store, Rebecca's blood pressure spiked instantly. His walk, his posture, the way he surveyed his surroundings, Rebecca knew this profile very well. But the real shock came when she saw the man's face. Alexander Petrov. 12 years later, the man who had destroyed Rebecca's life was walking into a small grocery store in Pennsylvania. He looked older. His hair had grayed, but Rebecca recognized him as clearly as if she had seen him 1,000 times. For years, she had chased him, lost him in her final mission, and he was one of the FBI's most wanted criminals. Petrov walked toward the produce section. Rebecca froze at the register. The barcode scanner in her hand began to tremble. 12 years of civilian life, peaceful routine, safe anonymity. It was all crumbling at once. Petrov picked up a banana, then moved to the dairy section. Alarm bells were ringing in Rebecca's mind. This couldn't be a coincidence. What was Petrov doing here? Had he found Rebecca, or had he really come by pure chance? When Mrs. Patterson left the register, Rebecca took a deep breath. Petrov was approaching. He had only a banana, a liter of milk, and a small loaf of bread in his hands. He looked like a normal customer. Petrov greeted her as he reached Rebecca's register. The voice was the same, the voice she had heard thousands of times in phone intercepts 12 years ago. Rebecca replied with a greeting of her own, trying to keep her voice as normal as possible while asking how he was today. As Petrov placed his items on the counter, he looked at Rebecca's face. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Rebecca held her breath. Petrov mentioned that she looked familiar, as if they had met before. Rebecca's hand gripped the barcode scanner tightly as she suggested it might be because it was a small town where everyone knew everyone. Petrov smiled, but this smile froze Rebecca's blood, because this was the smile of a predator who had found its prey. He agreed it was a very small town, perfect place to hide. Rebecca's heart began beating wildly. Petrov knew. He had recognized her. Rebecca announced the total was $8.50, making a great effort to keep her voice from trembling. Petrov pulled out his wallet. As he handed over the money, he looked into Rebecca's eyes. He whispered something in German, addressing her by her real name and commenting that he never thought ghosts were real. Rebecca's world stopped. Petrov knew her real name. He had recognized her. 12 years of secret life was collapsing in an instant. Rebecca apologized and asked what he had said, still trying to play her role. As Petrov took his change, he touched Rebecca's hand. He left something cold and metallic in her palm. He mentioned that old friends never really say goodbye, smiled, and said he would see her soon, addressing her as Agent Thompson. And just like that, he walked out. Rebecca looked at the metal object in her hand. It was a small memory card. There was only one note on it. Tomorrow night, 11 p.m., Old Factory, come alone. Rebecca stood there behind the register. 12 years of peaceful life, safe routine, anonymity where no one recognized her. It was all over. But the real question was, what did Petrov want? Rebecca couldn't sleep that night. When she inserted the memory card into her laptop, there was only one photo inside, a shot from the Prague operation 12 years ago, the last photo of Rebecca and her team before everything went wrong. The next morning when she went to the store, everything looked normal. But Rebecca was no longer the same. She was analyzing every customer, every movement, every abnormal detail. The agent instincts she had suppressed for 12 years had returned. During her lunch break, Rebecca called the FBI emergency line from a phone booth. The operator didn't recognize Rebecca's voice and initially refused to connect her. After Rebecca provided her old codename Ghost and identified herself as Agent Rebecca Thompson, supposedly killed 12 years ago, there was a long silence on the phone line. 5 minutes later, Rebecca's former supervisor, Agent Harrison, was on the line. His voice carried disbelief mixed with shock when he heard Rebecca's voice after 12 years. Rebecca explained that Alexander Petrov had found her, but Harrison's response was immediate and harsh. According to FBI records, Petrov had been killed in Siberia 8 years ago, making Rebecca's claim impossible. Rebecca insisted that Petrov had been shopping in her store the previous evening, had recognized her, and had given her a meeting appointment. Harrison's voice immediately hardened as he told Rebecca this was impossible because they had seen Petrov's body. Rebecca reminded him that they had seen many things in 12 years, and nothing was truly impossible in their line of work. When Harrison asked for her location, Rebecca revealed she was in Pennsylvania, in Riverside Town, living under the name Rebecca Miller for 12 years. Harrison's order was immediate and non-negotiable. Get out of there and leave immediately. But Rebecca couldn't abandon her post. If Petrov was really alive, running would endanger innocent people. The people of this town had been her family for 12 years, and she wouldn't put them at risk. That night, Rebecca went to the old warehouse building. She carried her last gun from the FBI and 12 years of suppressed anger. Petrov was there. Instead of his stylish suit, he wore casual clothes. He looked old, tired, and scared. Petrov thanked her for coming, and when Rebecca demanded to know what he wanted, his answer shocked her completely. He wanted her protection. Rebecca laughed in amazement at the absurdity of the request. The man who had destroyed her life was asking for her protection. Petrov explained that 12 years ago, everything hadn't gone as planned. The Prague operation was a trap, but not her trap. It was his trap. Rebecca accused him of lying, but Petrov continued with his revelation. She hadn't been sent to capture him, she'd been sent to kill him. But he had escaped. 4 people from her team died because he had warned them. Rebecca's world was shaking as she processed this information. Petrov revealed there was a mole in the FBI, someone who wanted to kill him. That person also wanted to kill Rebecca because she could learn the truth that someone at the highest level of the FBI had been a partner in his arms smuggling network. Rebecca drew her gun and accused him of lying again, but Petrov asked her to think logically. Why hadn't anyone looked for her for 12 years? Why was her identity burned? Why was she recorded as dead? Rebecca's hand began to tremble as she realized the implications. She had always believed it was because the operation failed, but Petrov's explanation was different and terrifying. They had wanted to eliminate her, but he had escaped. Now that person wanted to kill both of them. When Rebecca demanded to know who it was, Petrov's answer made her gun drop to the ground. Marcus Harrison, her mentor, her trusted supervisor. Rebecca's legs gave out as she processed this revelation. She leaned against the wall, asking if he had proof. Petrov pulled out a USB drive containing everything: bank accounts, secret agreements, communication records, Harrison's 15-year betrayal file. When Rebecca asked why he was coming forward now, Petrov explained that Harrison had finally found him. He would be killed soon. But first, Harrison wanted to kill Rebecca too because he had learned she was alive and hiding in this location. Rebecca heard her phone ringing and her heart stopped. It was Harrison calling to ask where she was and why she hadn't shared her location. Rebecca told him she was safe. When Harrison asked if she had met with Petrov, Rebecca silently looked at Petrov and lied, saying he didn't come. Harrison said this was good because he was on his way to get her right now, and she would be in Washington the next morning. Rebecca insisted she was safe and he didn't need to come, but Harrison made it clear this was an order and demanded she send her location immediately. When she hung up the phone, Rebecca understood the truth. Petrov was telling the truth about Harrison's betrayal. Rebecca told Petrov they needed to get out of town because if Harrison came, innocent people could get hurt. But Petrov disagreed, explaining that if they ran, Harrison would find her everywhere. The only way out was to fight. Rebecca protested that the people of this town had been her family for 12 years, and she couldn't put them in danger. Petrov smiled and told her that meant she would have to introduce herself to them. She would have to tell them who she really was. Rebecca took a deep breath. 12 years of secret life was ending, but this time, the choice was hers. The next morning, when Rebecca went to the store, everything was ready. She had alerted other FBI departments with the information Petrov had given her, but the main plan was to catch Harrison red-handed. At 10 a.m., black SUVs arrived at the town entrance. Marcus Harrison got out with 6 agents, but the store they came to was empty. Harrison asked where Rebecca was, and store manager Mike calmly replied by asking which Rebecca he was talking about. When Harrison said Rebecca Miller, who worked there, Mike corrected him, saying he was looking for Rebecca Thompson, FBI agent Rebecca Thompson. Harrison's face went pale as he asked what Mike was saying. Mike explained that she had revealed her identity the previous night, and it turned out the woman who had been living among them for 12 years was one of the FBI's most successful agents. At that moment, Rebecca's voice came over the store's speakers, greeting Harrison and informing him that she had sent all of Petrov's evidence to FBI headquarters, including his 15-year betrayal file. Harrison drew his gun and demanded she come out. Rebecca refused, explaining that the people of this town now knew her real identity and were protecting her. Indeed, every customer, every employee in the store was standing behind Rebecca. When they learned the real identity of the woman who had been living among them for 12 years, they were surprised but proud. Mike stood next to Rebecca, looking at Harrison and telling him that if he wanted to arrest Agent Thompson, he would have to deal with them first. Harrison looked around. All the townspeople were watching the situation in the store. There was no chance of escape. Harrison made one last desperate attempt, claiming they had been looking for her for 12 years. Rebecca's voice came back over the speakers, calling out his lie and stating that he had been wanting to kill her for 12 years. At that moment, Real FBI agents entered the town. They came with documents proving Harrison's betrayal. As Harrison was being arrested, Rebecca finally came out of the store. She still wore her green apron, but she was no longer hiding. The townspeople applauded her. The woman who had been living among them for 12 years wasn't just a grocery store employee. She was a hero who had served her country. Rebecca looked at her customers. Mrs. Patterson, the Rodriguez family, Mike. They were all smiling at her. Mike asked what would happen now, and Rebecca looked around at the small town that had been her home for 12 years. These people had become her family. Rebecca told them she wasn't going back to the FBI. She was staying here because her real identity wasn't Agent Rebecca Thompson. Her real identity was their Rebecca. Petrov came to Rebecca after the operation and thanked her for saving his life. Rebecca corrected him, saying he had saved her life because she had been running from the wrong person for 12 years. As Rebecca returned to her position at Register 3, she understood something important. Heroes weren't defined by their badges or their guns. They were defined by the communities they served and the people they protected. The customers who came to her register that day saw something different in Rebecca's eyes. Not fear or hiding, but pride. Pride in who she was and pride in the community that had accepted her. Mrs. Patterson approached the register with her usual items and told Rebecca they had never cared about her past. They cared about who she was to them. Rebecca smiled as she scanned the items and asked who she was to them. Mrs. Patterson replied that she was their Rebecca, their neighbor, their friend, their hero, who made the best coffee in town during breaks. That evening, as Rebecca locked up the store, she looked at the small town that had protected her when she needed it most. The townspeople hadn't just accepted her true identity. They had embraced it. The local newspaper ran a story the next day with the headline, "Local Hero Revealed. FBI Agent Lived Among Us for 12 Years." But the article focused less on Rebecca's secret past and more on her contributions to the community, her volunteer work, her kindness to elderly customers, and her role in the annual town festival. Rebecca realized that her 12 years in hiding hadn't been wasted. They had been preparation for this moment when she could finally be both Rebecca Thompson, the FBI agent, and Rebecca Miller, the community member. The FBI offered her a position as an instructor at the academy. Her experience, both as an agent and as someone who had lived undercover for 12 years, would be invaluable to new recruits. But Rebecca's answer surprised everyone. She would consult part-time, but her home was here. These people didn't just hide her, they helped her become who she was meant to be. Alexander Petrov, now under FBI protection and cooperating with the investigation into corruption within the agency, visited Rebecca one final time. He told her that he had spent 15 years running from the truth, and she had spent 12 years hiding from it. But in the end, the truth had found them both. Rebecca nodded and pointed out the difference. She had had a community to help her face it, while he had to face it alone. As the weeks passed, Rebecca's life settled into a new routine. She continued working at the supermarket, but now she also helped train new FBI agents in undercover work. She taught them about the importance of community, about how real protection comes not from weapons or badges, but from the people who choose to stand by you. The people of Riverside never treated Rebecca differently after learning her true identity. If anything, they were proud to have had a real hero working among them, someone who had served their country and then chosen to serve their community. Rebecca's story became a reminder that heroes often walk among us in disguise, that the person checking your groceries or serving your coffee might have an extraordinary past. But more importantly, it showed that heroism isn't about the extraordinary things you've done in the past. It's about the ordinary kindness you show every day. On quiet afternoons at the supermarket, when the store was nearly empty and the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, Rebecca would sometimes think about her old life. The adrenaline, the danger, the constant need to be someone else. But then a regular customer would approach her register, greet her by name, and ask about her day, and Rebecca would remember why she had chosen this life, why she had chosen this community. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was home. The story of Rebecca Thompson reminds us that heroism takes many forms. Sometimes it's about dramatic rescues and dangerous missions, but more often it's about the choice to serve others, to build community, and to be there when people need you most, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, among the people we see every day. There may be those who have served with distinction, who have made sacrifices we'll never fully understand. They ask for nothing more than the chance to be part of something bigger than themselves. And sometimes, when the moment calls for it, they're ready to step forward once again, not as the heroes they once were, but as the community members they've chosen to become. This is the story of Rebecca Thompson, who learned that the greatest mission of all is simply being there for the people who matter most. 3 months after the Harrison arrest, Rebecca received an unexpected visitor. A young woman in her 20s, nervous but determined, walked into the supermarket during Rebecca's shift. She waited until the store was relatively empty before approaching register 3. The woman asked quietly if she was Agent Thompson. Rebecca looked up from her scanner and identified herself as Rebecca Miller, asking if she could help. The woman smiled and introduced herself as Emma Walsh, a new FBI recruit who would start at Quantico the following month. She wanted to meet Rebecca before beginning training. Rebecca's expression softened and she asked what she could do for Emma. Emma explained that she had read about Rebecca's case in the academy materials, how she had lived undercover for 12 years, how she had chosen community over career advancement. She wanted to ask Rebecca something. Rebecca gestured to the customer service area where they could talk privately and asked what was on Emma's mind. Emma took a deep breath and admitted she was scared, not of the danger or the missions, but of losing herself, of becoming so focused on the job that she forgot who she really was. She wanted to know how Rebecca had stayed herself during all those years. Rebecca considered the question carefully and told Emma that the truth was, she didn't stay herself. She became someone better. Living here, serving this community, had taught her that being an agent wasn't about the badge or the authority. It was about being useful to people who needed you. Emma asked if Rebecca hadn't been frustrated, wasting her skills on ordinary tasks. Rebecca smiled and explained that there was nothing ordinary about making someone's day better. There was nothing ordinary about being there when your neighbors needed you. Every time she helped Mrs. Patterson carry her groceries, every time she listened to Mike's worries about the store, every time she made a frightened child laugh while their parents shopped, those weren't wastes of skills. Those were the most important missions she ever had. Emma nodded slowly and mentioned that the instructors at the academy talked about duty and service, but they meant it differently than Rebecca did. Rebecca explained that duty wasn't just about following orders. It was about understanding that your real job was to make the world a little bit safer, a little bit kinder, wherever you were. Whether that was stopping international criminals or helping a customer find the right product for their family dinner. As Emma prepared to leave, she turned back and asked if Rebecca would be willing to speak to her class when they studied undercover operations. Rebecca laughed and told Emma she would be honored, but she wouldn't be speaking as Agent Thompson. She would be speaking as Rebecca Miller, grocery store clerk, who happened to have some experience with staying true to yourself, no matter what job you were doing. After Emma left, Rebecca returned to her register with a new understanding. Her story wasn't ending. It was beginning a new chapter. She had found her purpose not in spite of her ordinary life, but because of it. The afternoon sun streamed through the store windows as Rebecca continued her work, knowing that tomorrow would bring new opportunities to serve her community, to train young agents, and to prove that heroism isn't about the extraordinary things you've done. It's about the ordinary kindness you choose to show every single day. In the end, Rebecca Thompson had discovered the most important truth of all. Home isn't a place you return to after the mission is over. Home is the mission itself.